Okay, here we go. Good morning from beautiful Portland, Oregon. It's middle of February. No, it's the beginning of February, but it feels like the middle of March right now. It's so beautiful out. I've been playing with morning pages. Those of you in the know will have already read The Artist's Way and done morning pages and artist dates and all of those things. I'm on day 4 and it's already opening things up for me. So I will share that book at the very end of this video. But what I want to show you today is the result of asking the question, what if? What if? Like, what if I start a YouTube video and start sharing my art to a much wider crowd? What if I dabble in acrylics and not just be a watercolor artist? What if I buy some luminance pencils and see if they do the miracles that other artists have said they do? What if? What if I put a shock of blue in that sea of green and see what happens? So I have a number of sketchbooks that I want to share what I've been doing in the last 3 weeks with this question of what if. And then I have a bit of a process video of making a portrait with some prepared pages. That's a new thing for me. That's a what if. What if I did this thing of prepared pages that other artists talk about? And then at the end, I want to show you some of the materials, some acrylics that I picked up at Blick Art the other day, and some of the other tools that I'm finding super inspirational alongside of my watercolor and gouache collection. So I'm going to put you up overhead on the boom, and you'll be looking down and looking at some of the sketchbooks. Come on along. I'm glad you're here. Okay, here we are. Let me get situated and make sure you're in the camera. I'm just using this for my morning pages. It's not supposed to be a very fancy thing, just a college-ruled composition book, $1.50. All right, I'm gonna look at this first, and I'll go ahead and sit down and trust that you're in camera. Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. All right, so I put this deli paper in between because now I'm using materials that will smudge onto the next page when I'm working. And I think in a future video we'll do a full sketchbook tour. But what now I want to look at are things that are coming up for me right now. Super recent. Here's something. A sketch from a neighborhood street scene in which I used my regular way of very carefully drawing something out. But then one day I had this open and I thought, let me sketch while I'm watching TV. And if you watch the same news program that I do, you may recognize him. I sketched him with a pink luminance pencil to try to think, what if I sketched him with the pink luminance pencil? How would that work out? And then I started testing the colors, what colors next to each other might be inspiring. So this started to really make me think about what colors I might try to set next to each other. And then I really went into it. So this is starting to use acrylics to get this really dark color, but I'm putting Neocolor 2 crayons over the top to bring back in some light, and then some jelly roll, they're like acrylic pens to really bring in that light. But I'm really mixing things up here. There's watercolor in here, there's pens, there's ink, to try to get some deeper values and to test colors next to another color. Here I asked, what if the sky was more of a green next to a blue? Would it still read as a sky? Guess you'll recognize from my last video if you watched it. Some trials and errors. And then, oh, here's an interesting one. This is from an Emma Carlisle Patreon session. And I made the whole painting. It's not finished, but it's getting close to being finished. And then I decided, what if I put this blue color, Neocolor 2, just along the top of this, what really should be green. And what if I, instead of painting just a straight field of green, what if I make some different colors in that foreground to see how that plays? I like it. I like it a lot, and I want to try more of this kind of stuff. And then, this is getting to be very recent because this was just this week. This is a photograph that I took at a place near a place called Oxbow. It's not actually in Oxbow Park, but it's part of the Sandy River. And this is such a mix. I can't even tell you what kind of supplies are in here. I mean, I know there's acrylics, and I know there's luminance pencils, and I know that there's Neocolor 2s, and there's even some wax pastels. But I just kept layering, and I'm very interested in this. It's a totally different way of thinking than watercolor. Watercolor, you're preserving your whites, you're not adding the whites back on, and you're not doing a bunch of layers most of the time. You can do some glazing, but it's a very different way of thinking when you're using these colors that can go over the top of other colors and bring the whites back up out. So I'm very interested in trying this one again. This is not the first time I've tried this image. In fact, if you look back, there's a video where I am trying out the nib pen, and I do this scene in a completely different way. All the what if questions. And then this is just yesterday from again an Emma Carlisle Patreon where we're doing map crunching, and this image is from the Balearic Islands. And this is just drawn with a Neocolor 2 pastel and then lightly rendered with the water brush. So that one. And then we have here, as I've shown you my fast frogs, I believe, but I went back in and made them into very, very well developed frogs, and I'm loving, see, this is where I'm talking about that shock of blue against the green. I'm loving it, and I love how this deep blue and purple down here gives a depth to that lily pad. And I also love the difference of the colors of orange and pink next to a teal butted frog. Awesome. Just like such an inspirational idea that I need to follow up with for sure. Some more of those fast frogs that turned into longer steady frogs. And here's fast frogs that were just in the whatever it was 5-minute time period. It's a very interesting thing because you can get the gesture down of the frog, and then when the image goes away, then you have to use your imagination to finish it out. And that's what I was doing back here. These are just the frog was there, so I had to make up the lily pad, the color, the rushes behind it. It all came from my imagination at that point. Okay, let's skip forward here. There's a few things that I had put some watercolor paper in the middle of this book, but as you can see, I'm not touching it very much. I'm more interested in this cheaper watercolor paper, the Canson Montval. All right. What I often do is I'll have 2 or 3 watercolor books going at the same time, so when one is drying, the other one can get some color. Foxes in the Snow, working on bringing both watercolor and gouache and Neocolor 2. And oh my gosh, I can totally see some white gouache that I was putting over the top of this in order to knock back that color. Asking what if we had blue on this side and a green on this side? Would it bother me that that probably isn't going to happen in real life? And the answer is no. I love it. I think it's really interesting. And I love how different the textures are. We see a really, really sharp texture here and a very, very smooth texture here. And then, you know, that purple came in just because I thought, well, what if I put the purple there? What will it do? What will it change to that blue color? And then this one made me start thinking about the negative space. So when I got out this blue Neil color and I started to carve out bits of green to make it, instead of just a wash like this, into shapes. What could I do with that? Very interesting trial in the sketchbook. And here we are. This is close to, this is yesterday, where I was working on a map crunch video or map crunch scene that I found in Norway. And now we've really departed from the scene by the time I'm bringing in these colors. They've brought in this beautiful yellow. It's Naples yellow hue from Golden. It's one of the new materials that I was talking about. And then I thought, what if I start to bring in some purples? And that's what's coming up next for this, is I want to drop down in some purples into that yellow and see how that plays against the rest of the scene. This is gouache. So that's where we are with those two. And then here is what you're going to see shortly. Where did I lose my watercolor book? Ah, there it is. This is a smaller sketchbook that I filled with 400 Strathmore 400 series paper. Surprisingly, the paper that I put in here, it's not that paper, it's this paper, is more expensive than the paper that I put in here. This is a Montball Canson paper, and I actually like this more. This one that's cheaper, it kind of handles my water media better. But I figured if this one doesn't handle water media very well, then I can just use colored pencils. You'll see that there's that same scene. I got it down in colored pencil and a little bit of pan pastel, and then I used this to paint that other scene that you just saw. And I wrote down the address in case I want to go back to it in Google Earth. There's another Google Earth, just a random place with some buildings. Okay, and now here's where we are. This is what you're going to see in the process part of this video. This is my father-in-law, and it's an image of him, and mostly rendered in acrylic, but also using this really interesting thing that I found in my art collection. I've had it for years, and I think they don't even make this exact thing anymore. This Lyra 9B graphite pencil, very thick but really wonderful because I don't shave it to a point, so it's very loose. It makes me very loose because I can't be very precise with a nib like that. And then a little bit of a map crunch exploration again with a prepared page. All right, so let's get into this part, and I'm going to talk you through it. All right. Okay, this is sped up to like 6 times of my regular speed, but you see me using that graphite stick and just getting down the main bits. Portraits are rough. For like the first 50 portraits that you'll draw, you'll probably not like them. But then if you kind of get into the idea that you're trying to capture the essence of a person instead of the actual, at least for me, I don't care about the actual physicality of representing a person because I can take a photograph of a person and capture their like physical being. But I feel like the painting or the rendering of a person is more of an exploration of like their mood or their character. And in this case, like I'm really, really pleased with it because I feel like you can definitely feel something about who he is. I mean, I can definitely. And when I showed my husband these sketches after drawing them, painting them, and not telling him who it is, he immediately was like, my gosh, that's my dad. So even though it's not a super strong actual likeness. So I'm going in here with the gouache. This is gouache, and boy, I couldn't tell you what color it is. It's just on that palette of mine. And then I thought I'd muddy it up with some Neocolor twos and just try to very instinctually just picking up whatever I feel like picking up without thinking about it too much. So you're going to see a decision right here that at the beginning you're going to be like, why did she do that? Because in the beginning it looks like a really wrong decision, but it's just following that what if theme of this whole video, or theme of like 2024, I think for me. Here we go. Blue hands, blue face. What? But it turns out in the end really interesting. And I think it's, you see, even with the paper towel there, I'm like, can I remove that deep blue? No, it's acrylic. It's on there. We're stuck with it, baby. It's going to stay. So I actually wasn't too fond of just keeping the blue. So I used a brown in the Neocolor too to kind of keep the dark hues, but turn down the blue man vibe. I'm always fond of artists who bring in different colors into a face or into a scene instead of the accurate like rendering that I'm prone to do. So I try really hard to draw some different colors into a rendering of whatever it is. So now here is where I felt like I can see his expression through his body language on the right side, but I really wanted to see if I could capture his face. And I'm not going to paint it blue this time. I'm going to stick with the browns, I think. But this prepared pages, so what I did is I just put some acrylic down, the new acrylics that I'm going to show you at the end of this video. I just smudged some acrylics down, and I can't tell you how much easier it was to try to loosely sketch something and then to start thinking about color when I have some midtones already on the page, and something messy also, because then it just remove any like thoughts of accuracy. Now look right here. I love how the color, the lapel of his coat shines through with that graphite graphite stick, even after I've painted it over with the acrylic. I love that. So that was a new exploration for me that I'm like, oh, I love that. I love painting over the top of the graphite stick with the acrylic. So cool. Now I'm going to knock back that blue a little bit, give it a little bit of a softer hue. What an interesting exploration this was. And I guess I'm most proud of the pieces that I intentionally left out, and when I tried to really focus in on showing him. Okay, here we are with some materials that have been inspiring me lately. My acrylics collection has been growing. And here's the latest. I have been playing with M-gram paints for most of the time, and I have a lot of these earthy tones because I ordered them for one of my kids' school projects. Burnt sienna, raw umber, and transparent red iron oxide. And then I have one, and then the whites, titanium and zinc white. Then I bought a Winsor & Newton acrylic that my son chose in graphite gray because he wanted to paint one of his battleship models. He makes chipboard models, which is awesome. And so this is really his paint, but I put it into my acrylics collection. And then what I do, these are my new ones, Goldens. Golden is wonderful, by the way. It is smooth. These are heavy body, which means they're thick. And so what I've found is that when I squeeze them into my little, I bought these little things at the restaurant supply store, the little solo containers that you usually find at a restaurant, and you putting in like ketchup and mustard. You can get a huge pack of the little cups and the little lids for like a couple bucks. And for the stage of acrylics that I'm at, this is a really good size. I can write the color on the side. Oh my God, now I'm picking up all these ones where I haven't written the color. So this is burnt sienna plus this blue. This is a kind of a crappy blue that was sent by the kids' school. It's very, very watery and runny, and there's not very much pigment in it. Super different from these art supply ones that I have purchased. You know, teal and Naples yellow. So here I have my many growing supply of acrylics, because I squirt a little bit into the solo container, and then I add some water. So here's all I do, and I've got all these ideas from Sandy Hester, who has a wonderful YouTube channel. So I pull this open, I give it a spritz to wake it up, and then I stir it around, usually with one of these little sticks that I bought in Mexico one time when I was there. And what happens is, at the beginning, it gets a little goopy. It gets a little chunky, like cottage cheese. But if you keep going, it'll get smoother and smoother and smoother. And pretty soon you'll have this gorgeous paint, and it'll be at whatever thickness you want. If you want it thinner, just add more water. So that's how that works. And then I use these little paper mache things that I purchased to store other bits. So anyway, these are the colors I recently purchased. The Cerulean Blue Deep. This is PB36, so if you recognize the color numbers, this is just the same as a watercolor or gouache Cerulean. The surprising thing is that this is a series 9, which means it's the most expensive of these. Like, not all of these are the same price. They are different depending on what series they are. And the series will depend upon probably how they source the pigment. It's the only thing that's different, right? So for instance, this one I think cost like $16. So it's pretty expensive little 2 ounces of paint. Whereas this one, the series 2, might have cost $5 or $4 or something like that. So it's very different depending on which, but these are the 3 that I thought would be fun to try, because I already have all these earthy colors, and I wanted to try mixing some greens and just to sit and play with the greens and the blues. Then, aside from the acrylics, I have been finding, I showed you this before, and I'll try to find this in today's terms and link it in the description below in case you want to find it on Amazon. It's just a graphite stick, a 9B, so super soft. And yeah, I remember I got this because I was working at an architecture firm, and they hired an artist to come and do some like workshop with those of us who wanted to do it. And so he brought in some huge newsprint and some tools like charcoal and this graphite stick and a few other things. And so I have a few random things like this. And then some of my favorites in the luminance, if you don't do like I do, and I just bought a big box and thought I'll just try all of them. So I have a huge pile of luminance pencils. But I'll tell you what, if you don't want to do that way, there are a few pencils that I keep reaching for and that I would recommend if you have an interest in buying them, but you don't want to buy the whole, whole shebang. This one I almost went crazy the other day because I couldn't find my olive yellow, the 015. This one I can tell already is going to become the shortest one. I guess maybe the black will become the shortest one first. That's 009. And then that olive yellow is going to be the next one. I love that color. In fact, I should just get a piece of paper and swatch this for you real quick because they're just wonderful. And the lovely thing is if you have paint down already, like if I smudge some of this acrylic and let it dry for a second, then I can go ahead and draw right over the top and it will show. I have not found this to be true with any other of the pencils, of the colored pencils that I've ever had. Isn't that color amazing? It's just the right amount of yellow to make me feel, you know, like spring is around the corner. And this one's called Olive Brown 039. It looks earthy and lovely. Crimson alizarin hue. Oh, just like next to something else. Look at that. Castle Earth. Nice and deep, but not black. See how it is next to the black. And then for a blue that I'm always reaching for, gray blue. Oh, so pretty, especially against that Naples yellow. So this isn't totally dry, but do you see how that color can just marks right over the top? They're really wonderful, and they're lightweight. This other thing that I noticed right away when picking these up is that they're such lightweight pencils. It's interesting, you don't think about that very much until you maybe take your tools out on like the drawing location. Like these guys, the Derwent Inktense, which are also a wonderful tool, but they're so much heavier. They're so much heavier. So it's an interesting observation of how it feels in your hand. Okay, I think that is it for new tools. Actually, there's one thing that is not new at all, but I've started to bring them back around. I've been afraid to use these really wonderful wax pastels. They're Sennelier, they're expensive, and I ordered a little pile of them that you can see, I don't know, 6 years ago. And I really haven't used them. Look at this one. It still looks like it's been like used once. But I found recently that what I like to do is I can put in a color, and if I don't like it that sharp, I can rub it and I can get a mist. And I'm really loving it that way. And it's not as sticky. You know how these can feel really sticky when you have just the color down? But that is going like that. And then, again, with my favorite colors in luminance, you can just like get a really good coverage right over the top. Even the white. So for instance, I have a white in a Derwent drawing pencil, and then let's compare it to the white of luminance, right? So here's Derwent drawing. It covers a bit, but it mixes a little bit with that. And let's see it over the top of acrylic. You can see it a little bit better. But then luminance, I guess it mixes pretty well too. I had this feeling that it really covers, oh yeah. It just feels like it lays down pigment, like stronger than the Derwent drawing pencil. And it's a different feeling, like this one's so smooth and buttery, whereas this one has a bit more grit to it. Not saying that I regret buying the Derwent drawing pencils, they're just fine, but it is a very big difference. And it's heavier in the hand than this one. This one's a much lighter feeling. So I think at some point I'm going to have to spend more time swatching and showing you some of the tools that I like. It's going to make this video way too long if I get into all of that. So, all right, that's it for today. I was just editing this video and I realized that I forgot one important thing that I promised to show you. This is Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and it's a, oh my gosh, was it published in like the 70s to start? Oh, 1992, I guess it's not that old. It's a wonderful, interesting book about how to grow as an artist and how to grow. And when we say artist, I think that this was initially made for maybe writers or something like that. But of course, all types of artists have benefited from this in so many different ways. Anyway, it's I've just begun, really. I'm just like one tiptoe in the pool here. It's been hanging out around my house for a year. But my husband absconded with it, and I've just recently recovered it from the little book bag that he carries around the house. So anyway, tentatively, I totally recommend this for you, and I'll put it in the description below. All right, thank you for being with me today. I know this video is like much longer than my usual ones. It's like half an hour, and if you've made it all the way to the end, oh my gosh, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate all of your comments and all of your happy thoughts, and we'll look forward to talking to you again real soon. Okay, bye.